Welcome back to Flick Favorites. I'm going to explain an action, thriller film from 2010, titled, Salt. Spoilers ahead. Enjoy the content. In North Korea 2 years ago, CIA operative Salt was imprisoned and subjected to torture. Despite her claims to the contrary, she was tortured by the Korean security. When she was eventually freed, the American administration traded a Korean prisoner for her. Ted, a colleague, greeted her at the gate. Her lover Mike was persistent. He had sent multiple letters to the national body, and if the CIA hadn't done anything, Mike would have broken the cover himself, he said when she questioned him why the CIA had blown their cover to get her out. In spite of being aware that she was a CIA spy, Mike proposed to her that day when they first met outside the prison facility. She agreed to the suggestion. Now, 2 years later, is the couple's wedding anniversary. As Salt awakens to find her husband working on his studies, she informs him that she will be making pancakes to commemorate their wedding anniversary. When Ted sees her at work, she is surfing YouTube. They strike up a dialogue. Ted demands that they give Salt a break for the day while one of the CIA operatives, Francis, delivers Salt some documents as they are conversing. She and Ted are ready to leave the office when a Russian defector named Orlov barges into their office and demands to speak with Salt. When they are about to enter the investigation room, a CIA counterintelligence agent, Peabody, joins them to watch the interrogation. Salt arrives to speak with Orlov after he has undergone scanning. As soon as Orlov sees her, the first thing he says is that she is married. He admits to Salt that he has cancer and that, as he approaches death, he has no fear of anybody or anything. They will make sure that Russia does not perish, even though he and Russia are both dying. He claims he wants to share a tale with her. Shasa, a wrestler, and Anka, a chess expert, met in 1975. They were married after falling in love, and a year later they welcomed a son they called Chenkov. A few weeks later, Chenkov got unwell, was admitted to the hospital. Her parents were informed that she had passed away, and a baby was buried, but it wasn't Chenkov. Chenkov was brought home by an agent who had a grand scheme to raise kids to become American secret spies. The plot came to fruition in 1959 when American Lee Harvey immigrated to Russia. 3 years later, he returned to America, but it wasn't he who did. Instead, it was a Russian guy by the name of Alec. When the Alec program was a success, the agent taught all the children he had obtained with Chenkov's help. The children began studying the English language before the Russian language. They received training before being dispatched to America as KA agents. Orlov responds that the narrative didn't have a nice conclusion since Chenkov was adopted by American parents who perished in an accident, so he spent his life as an American. When Salt interrupts and asks when the story will conclude because she doesn't have time to waste. The Russian president would be assassinated on Day X, the day of the American vice president's burial, by Agent Ka-12, also known as Chenkov. He informs them that's why he's here, to inform them. Even though Orlov's neurological scan confirms everything, Ted laughs it off and questions why a Russian spy would assassinate their president, but Peabody is convinced of the story's veracity. When Salt inquires about the information's price, Orlov responds that he merely wants to assist them. She tells him she has more important things to accomplish as Salt tries to leave the room. Orlov informs Salt that she is the Ka-12 agent and that she is a Russian agent before she answers the door. Again, a scan of Orlov's brain reveals that what he is claiming is accurate. Peabody wants to bring Salt in for an inquiry, but she requests that he call beforehand, stating that they are after her husband because Orlov had earlier mentioned their marriage. Mike isn't available when she calls him, so she hangs up. While he and Ted consider their options, Peabody gives the order to lock Salt in the investigation room. She is not a Russian spy, according to Salt. While the security is escorting Orlov out the workplace, he confronts them in the elevator. The red signal is broadcast across the entire office, and Salt takes advantage of the situation. She requests to use the restroom before leaving the inquiry room. Salt is fleeing as Peabody watches the CCTV feed in the security room. To find her and Orloff, he dispatches operatives. She chooses to search for her husband alone because it appears to her that the CIA had little interest in doing so. When the woman realizes she is being watched on the CCTV while she is hiding, she grabs a fire extinguisher and blurs out all the cameras. Peabody attacks her with the team, but she defeats them by forging an alliance with the team. She grabs a pistol, smashes the window, and then leaps out. She rides home in a taxi. Ted informs Peabody that she would head right for her house to look for her husband. She brings her pet dog and her husband's spider in a bag, and when she returns home she realizes Mike has been abducted. When she notices the CIA officers approaching, she climbs through the window to a nearby apartment, puts her pet dog down with the little child inside, changes into running gear, and then takes off. When Peabody notices her, she tries to flee but he catches up with her. She yells that she is being set up and is not a spy. Ted makes an attempt to speak for her and informs Peabody that the Russian spy could be lying. Peabody asks Salt to surrender, but she jumps down onto a moving train. She attempts to get away by jumping from train to train. Ted has no option except to report her to the Secret Service. Salt makes her way into a club, attends to her wound, and then leaves. As she rides the train to New York, she thinks back to the day she was freed from North Korea and how she warned her husband that he wouldn't be safe with her. Mike opted to love and be with her despite being aware that she was an agent. She enters a hotel under a false identity, and while walking to her room, she takes some clothing. She takes her weaponry out of her suitcase and colors her hair black. Security has shut off the whole region on the day of the funeral. There, Ted and Peabody are securing the whole perimeter. Salt is traveling on a train as the ceremony starts, but the ritual prevents the train from stopping at the station. She lights a fire on the train, which opens the doors, and then gets off. Through the utility tunnel, she enters the area undetected and murders a few unit officers. Peabody leaves the burial and hurries down to the utility tunnel as soon as he learns that certain unit officers are gone. At the burial, Salt detonates a bomb, causing the Russian president to collapse directly in front of her. She shoots the president. Peabody sees her, and instead of taking advantage of the situation to assassinate him, she gives herself up to him. She is taken into custody by the NYPD. Ted promises to see to it that she spends the rest of her days in jail for this, but Peabody hesitates because he understands that Salt had the power to bring him down while she didn't. She remembers her youth in Russia and the day they altered her face as she is being driven away in the police van. She assaults the officers, causes an incident, and then flees. She takes a boat and snatches a hat. She remembers the day Orloff took her to the American embassy and informed her she would work for the CIA as she stands on the boat. Orloff had promised her that day that he would rescue her whenever he needed her. The word that the Russian agents are prepared to respond for the murder of their president and that an anti-American rally has started in Russia reach her as she rides the boat to the Russian sleeping agent's bunker. Orloff greets her as soon as she steps foot in the camp. He gives her a hug and tells her that she shouldn't have wed in the first place and that he had taken her husband hostage to make sure she could still be trusted. He brings her to her husband to see if she can watch him sink as he is being tested. Orloff assumes Salt has rejoined their force because of her indifferent appearance. Agents are happy to see their sister again. She is informed by Orloff that her next assignment is to meet up with Comrade Edward, a NATO spy. She murders Orloff and the other agents after receiving the task from him, then remembers her wedding day as she gazes at her husband's lifeless body floating in the ocean. She boards an aircraft to see Comrade Edward, one of the young trainees with whom Salt had a strong relationship at the time. He gives her a map that indicates where the president is located and tells her that his duty is to make sure the president is there at that area. He then explains that the purpose is to assassinate the American president. The White House is reached. Salt disguises herself as a NATO agent, and enters inside with Edward, who tells her he is sure there are other KA agents with the president, with different missions. The Secret Service questions Ted before allowing him to accompany the president after his arrival. Edward fires at the president just as he steps into the elevator, forcing him to accompany Ted into the covert bunker. When Edward is shot, the bomb inside of him explodes, killing him. Salt takes off her disguise as soon as she realizes what is going on and rushes into the elevator. The president receives news at the bunker that the Russians had deployed nuclear weapons, and he decides to react by ordering the use of American nuclear weapons. He seizes command of the nation's nuclear arsenal. Salt assaults and engages in combat with each security guard outside the bunker. Ted tells the president to sit down after shooting every secret security guard inside the bunker when he notices Salt is already there. Tarkovsky, another KA agent, emerges as Ted. When the president declines to guide his rocket in an other direction, Tarkovsky takes out the president. Ted is a KA agent, and Salt realizes it. The missile is directed by Tarkovsky at Tehran and Mecca. He claims they intend to encourage a large number of Muslims so that they will rebel and fully destroy America. Salt begs him to allow her access so that she can assist him. He won't let her, he says. The news subsequently reports that Salt had put spider poison into the Russian president's body, preventing his death. In order to force Salt to assume responsibility for the nuclear assault, Tarkovsky had requested Orlov to visit the CIA headquarters and identify her as an agent. He informs Salt that he knows she has betrayed them and that he knew they would be exposed. She claims that she murdered Orlov and the agents, while he claims that he was the one who ordered Orlov to abduct Mike. The news makes him joyful, and he comes to the conclusion that he would now be the hero and Salt would be the traitor. The nuclear launch is going to occur and is now progressing at 99%. Salt infiltrates the bunker, engages Tarkovsky in combat, and attempts to halt the launch. The Secret Service has been trying to break into the bunker for a while, and they finally succeed. When Salt rushes to halt the launch and gets shot by the Secret Service, they implore him and Tarkovsky to submit. When Peabody learns that everyone in Orlov's hideout had been slain, they asked forensics to look for the murderer while Salt was imprisoned and Tarkovsky pretended to be the one preventing the attack. Tarkovsky sits facing the walkway and attempts to sever her with a scissor, but she is quicker and kills him by strangling him with her handcuff chain. When the CIA removes Salt, she informs Peabody that Ted is aware of Orlov and that she is the one who gave her life in defense of the nation. She maintains that she wouldn't have batted an eye if she had intended to murder the Russian president because she was too skilled to err. She is told by Peabody that not even he would believe her. He learned through the forensics that Salt was the one who murdered everyone at Orlov's hiding place. He poses as if to smack Salt, and takes the chance to free her of her handcuffs so she may dive into the sea. She was nowhere to be found despite the plane's best efforts. A voiceover informs her that she is dead, along with every other KA agent, as she rushes through the woods. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to stay updated on future videos. Leave a like to support the channel.